Samuel Whitehill, American Hebrew poet and Hollywood actor. I'm talking today to Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By. Boker Tov me, Burbank.
Oh, shalom, my friends. This is your old buddy, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am delighted to be talking to an actor, someone who took up the profession kind of late in his career. As a matter of fact, he spent many years as, you should pardon the expression, a lawyer. But now he's making up for all that because he's appearing in short film after short film and some longer films and doing some theater too. Well, listen to some of the movies, the short movies that he has been in on the IMDb filmography, and this is just over the past year or two. Young and Naive, woohoo, Let's Make a Porno, yeah, and also Genesis, my favorite. How do you do better than Genesis? And there's even a movie he's working on called Tiptoe Through, where he plays a character named Elijah. Now, his name is Samuel Whitehill. So you figure, could be Jewish, could be Presbyterian. But no, not only is this man Jewish, he is fluent in Hebrew and writes poetry in Hebrew as well, and he's known for that too. So will you please welcome to the neighborhood with a great big Jewish shalom, Samuel Whitehill, shalom!
Shalom, Boker Tov, ma simcha.
Oh, tov todah, ma simcha to you.
בסדר גמור, אנחנו באמצע החורף בקליפורnia.
Well, I heard California. I don't know anything else that you said, but welcome.
We're in the depths of the Southern California winter. It's brutal. It's 65 degrees outside.
Well, that's okay. If it gets cold, you just start more fires over there. You know.
That's right. They come easy here.
How bad were the fires? I mean, were you affected? Was it near you?
Only the air quality. Here in Burbank, it was pretty quiet. But if you went farther west, you could see on the horizon, you could see all the smoke, and it did affect the air. But a lot of people their homes were destroyed by this fire, and I remember just being out in that area recently before the fire started, and I can't imagine what happened to all these people's homes.
Have you always lived in California, or did you practice law somewhere else and then went to the West Coast? No, what?
I was born in North Carolina originally in about 1708.
Well, I hear the twang. I do hear a southern inflection in your regular speaking voice.
I grew up in Texas.
Oh.
Texas.
Yeah.
And I taught myself Hebrew there I think it was past bar mitzvah. My parents were assimilationists, so I didn't have a bar mitzvah, but I started learning Hebrew on my own. I became very interested. It was right after the Eichmann trials. That's way before you were born, I'm sure, Rabbi.
Oh, years, decades before. Yes, absolutely.
Decades and decades, but I taught myself Hebrew.
Well, wait, I'll stop you there. Why did you decide to teach yourself Hebrew?
Well, I was just enthralled by Israel and just the rebirth of the country and Jewish life. It was just an extremely exciting idea for me.
Now, how religious were you? Were you Orthodox? Were you conservative? What?
No, my parents were pretty much, I guess, not involved. There was a small synagogue in Lubbock where my parents were not involved in. But I guess it was like when I became Jewishly conscious, I would still go to school on Yom Kippur, but I would go through the cafeteria line and not order any food. I remember that.
Jews love to suffer. This is what we do. We put ourselves through hell, and then we feel martyrdom about it. Good for you. Good for you. But okay, so you were somewhat observant and guilty. You had the guilt gene already in you. That was clear.
Yeah, we pass that down from generation to generation, don't we?
Now, I did, speaking of generations, and let's get the hard stuff out of the way first. That's what my wife said on our honeymoon. But no, I kid.
Okay, I have a joke about that, but...
oh, please, tell.
Oh, the three nuns died and went to heaven.
Wait, I can't hear you. You have to talk closer to your iPad thing.
Three nuns.
Yes.
Hear me now?
3 nuns, yes.
3 nuns died and went to heaven. We don't have St. Peter, we have God. So God spoke to these nuns and said, you ladies were very, very good in your lives, and it's going to be easy for you to get in heaven, but I just want to ask each of you one simple question, and then you can go on in. He asked the first nun, in the Bible, who was the first man? She said, oh, that's easy, Adam. And said, go
I love a good, dirty, filthy, biblical joke. There's nothing better.
Yeah, well, we have a sense of humor. Bible's full of humor.
But getting back to the generation aspect of your life, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but I did read this in commentary about your writing, that you had a pretty horrible childhood, no?
I think that Michael Weinstein might have exaggerated it because, well, I guess, yes. Just go ahead and, for argument's sake, just say yes.
Okay, I mean, what was so terrible?
Well, I guess in childhood I could not wait to get out of childhood and go into adulthood. I had very bizarre parents, my father especially, and I was a bullied kid in school, in grade school. That ended in junior high and high school, but it left its mark.
Well, bullying is terrible, but how was your father so strange, or shall I say, even more strange than your typical Jewish man?
He broke with his family. He told his stories about how terrible his two brothers were, and he had my mother. He broke my mother with her family, and we were very isolated. My mother had some sort of neurological disorder. I'm not quite sure what it was, but he was a doctor. He was her only patient. She was his patient.
Oh, boy.
And it was like three of us, my father, my mother, and myself. And then we had a fourth person in the home, which was her illness, was sort of like another individual in the house. It was sort of the raison d'etre for my father. It was a very... and I didn't think of it as strange at the time until I brought my wife to be home, and she said, this is a very strange family, and the relationship between you and your father is the worst I've ever seen. And so...
Well, wait, but I'm not sensing if there was any physical abuse, or was he... Or so was it a Munchausen thing with your mom, or... I'm not getting...
I thought that. Yeah, I thought, later he did have this doing Munchausen by proxy on my mother. She was being treated for one disease, and then when he died, it was determined she didn't have that disease at all.
Ooh.
Physically, he was not. I don't know if he was physically abusive to my mother or not. He was mentally abusive, and with me, he was mentally, and he used physical force. I think a lot of parents used that in those days, but it was just obvious that there was a big wall between us.
Did that wall ever...
relationship.
Was that ever torn down? Like, when you got older, did you just break from him, or was there a rapprochement, if you will?
I think when I got married, I got a lot of the courage from my wife, and I stood up to them much more then after that. And I guess you leave your father and your mother and you cleave to your wife. And that's essentially what happened. And I broke with... I didn't break with my mother. I would call at home, and my father would answer the phone. I would just talk to my mother. But when he was about, I guess, he was they went in a terrible car wreck, and his last 10 years of his life, he was in very poor physical health. But it didn't really make the relationship improve at all. But I did meet some of his family members whom I had never met before.
Oh.
They turned out to be very nice people, and some of the stories he told about how he did this and this and this for them turned out to be in truth, the exact opposite.
Go figure. And I'll bet you make best friends with the other driver. No, I'm kidding. I kid about that.
Yeah, yeah, well, whatever.
No, you say, are you still cleaving to your wife?
Well, after 40 years, she hasn't left me yet.
Mit Mazel, how did you meet her?
We met in Austin. I was teaching Hebrew, actually, at Hillel, at the University of Texas at Austin, with Rabbi Neil Borowitz was the rabbi then. And she was in my class, and I was a terrible teacher, so she left the class. But I was a lawyer, so I was a lawyer for this Jewish co-op they ran. And whatever, she taught me how to read Torah, actually. She's a really good Torah reader.
Ooh.
And how to read Haftorah, and even Eicha, Lamentations.
I may ask you to bring her to the phone to read some Lamentations. What a great way to start the new year. Do you have a Torah in front of you, like I do in the living room?
No, we have a Megillat Esther in the house, but actually my wife is occupied with certain things right now. She can't come to the phone.
Ah, well, you could possibly, because you are not just a translator into Hebrew or can speak Hebrew, but you physically write in Hebrew. You know it well enough that you have written a lot of poetry in the Hebraic tongue. Can you read us a short poem of yours in Hebrew and tell us about it?
I'll be glad to. I have this book here, what we talk about when we talk about Hebrew. It's a new book from the University of Washington Press, and it has 2 chapters in this book on my work.
Ooh. One
by myself and one by Professor Michael Weingrad from Portland State University. But this does have a poem in here, and I'll read it. It's called Lemira. V'tizichi et smot ha'avanim be'orech ha'chusha k'mo chaver harichi et aviv shechar karnit um'of ha'kardinal besod libech יהיו כסוד אוויר ורז שמיים. ביתי קבלי את פני יתרו הגר, הבא לגור מתחת קורותך. ופני שיהיו...
Are you okay there? Are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I get a little frog in my throat. Let me read the...
a little Svardeya in your throat, if you will.
I have the... I usually Svardeya if I go home. But I could read you the English translation here.
Yeah, sure. But it's interesting how your whole persona and your voice changed completely when you started reading your poem in Hebrew. You went from this sort of lively, goofy actor type to being like like suddenly you gained 4,000 years of life just by reading your own work. It's interesting.
Yeah, I took negative geritol, I guess.
But what did that poem mean? What is? I heard the word shamayim. I know there's a sky in there. What else is in there?
Okay, I'll tell you what. I have the English a prose translation of it right underneath of it.
Yeah.
It's called Tamira. It was my niece's bat mitzvah in North Carolina, in Asheville, North Carolina. My dear girl, remember the names of the stones and befriend the pine tree in the grove. Smell the springtime, taste the eye's elixir, and know the cardinal on wing within your heart, like the secret of air and the riddle of the sky. My dear girl, greet Jethro the proselyte who comes to dwell within your house, and no matter what, and who cares what they'll say, hurry to comfort Zipporah abandoned in the tent with her sons. Pry open its sealed walls, not just a crack, that's not enough, but wide apart and nothing less. Sit with her and learn her Torah, and let her be astounded at your insight. And that's what they wrote onto her talit for her bat mitzvah. And she still has that talit with that poem on it.
Oh, for our non-Jewish listeners, a talit is the prayer shawl, the talis that they talk about.
Right.
And by the way, Jethro the proselyte has his own cable show now. I don't know if.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah.
Network.
You have to get Netflix, and a special subversion of Netflix, and it's only every other Thursday, twice a year. But it's good. You should check it out.
Oh.
We're talking with Samuel Whitehill here, Hebrew poet, and also later in life actor. And I want to talk about a few things in terms of your acting career, because not only are you not a young leading man ingenue now, I mean, you're in your 60s, yeah?
Yeah, that's good for government work. Yeah, it's pretty good.
but also, you're now an observant Jew, yes?
Well, I've been that observant the past, I guess, almost 40 years, really. But it's affected my career because I don't act or audition on Shabbat or the Jewish holidays where you don't work.
Well, I imagine a lot of movies shoot, if not on Friday night, certainly all day Saturday. Not to mention if you're doing theater, I don't know if you do that, but Fridays and Saturdays are very big days for shows.
Oh, sure. I don't do theater. I've only done one play so far. I only played one night, and that was the Motzai Shabbat. However, filming generally is not done on weekends. Sometimes but a lot of student films, and I feel sometimes I'm the Errol Flynn of student movies out here in Los Angeles. A lot of them do shoot on Shabbat. I guess maybe I've lost 20% of my jobs because of, they couldn't reconcile the time that I needed to work. But for the most part, filmmakers have been very, very nice about this, and they would film on Sunday for me or film early early on Friday so I get home in time. And so it's not been difficult. I expected some difficulties with it, but it hasn't happened.
That is wonderful. I love that they're being so amenable about that. Now, sorry.
There's one film that will be showing on PBS in February, and the movie is called Rolling in the Deep. It's going to be shown on a special program in honor of Black History Month. Rolling in the Deep it's only 12 minutes long, but it's won 22 prizes around the world in festivals over the past 2 years.
Now, can people see, because you're talking a bit about student films and short movies, which obviously you don't just go over to the Cineplex and see, how many of these movies can we see you in, maybe if they're on YouTube or Vimeo, or the websites have the entire movie on them, where we can see Samuel Whitehill in action?
Well, I think if you go to my IMDb page, I have Rolling in the Deep there, and you just go Samuel Whitehill on IMDb, and you have there's a little window there for videos, and just scroll down, and you can find whatever videos you want to watch, including that film. But it's still in the festival circuit, so it's not officially distributed yet. But I've been in a number of feature films, and one of them, called The Cry, will be distributed in 2019.
Ooh.
And there's another one called Somerset, which is supposed to come out in 2019, in which I play the President of the United States. Not the current president, of course, but
thank goodness, yes.
They're fast to it either, I guess, but it's a science fiction drama. What I was saying about Somerset, excuse me, about
The Cry?
Rolling in the Deep. That film, when I read the script, said this is one movie. If I only play in one movie in my entire career, this will be it, because it's such a wonderful. It's a movie about the South and the old days of segregation, and I remember those days. Unfortunately, I remember them well. But
all right, stop right there. Stop right there, Samuel Whitehill. Even if it's a painful thing, since you were a witness, tell us a memory that you have in North Carolina growing up of segregation in action.
Okay, I didn't grow up in North Carolina. I grew up in Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay. Yeah.
In Lubbock, Texas. I remember segregation because you go to Sears Roebuck or any store, and they have two water fountains. They're very nice aluminum cooler for whites, and then the old-fashioned one coming out of the wall that said colored. You'd see different bathrooms. You would never see any black person in your school or any professional. You'd only see black people as servants, and the housing was totally, due to what they call redlining, black people were sort of limited to live in a certain part of town because they couldn't get loans for building houses or improving their houses in other parts of town.
So let me ask you, though, that was the way of life. It was what you grew up with, it's what you lived with, and everyone around you. You knew probably in your gut that it was wrong, but it was also just the way things were. Now we look at the perspective of 2019 as, oh, God, that's unbelievably horrible. When did you get the inkling that, were you in the 60s? Were you active in terms of civil rights movement? How?
Well, in the 60s, I was like junior high and high school.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends who were, on the liberal side of things. But here we tell you, when I became sensitive to this was when I was a child. We learned that we were slaves in the land of Egypt. Okay, slavery's bad. Then my mother just mentioned that she's from Virginia, where their segregation was much worse. She said, "Oh yeah, and the Negro people, that was the term people used in those days, had been slaves before the Civil War." And I said, "Wait a minute, these people who were treated so badly today were actually slaves. They should be treated better than everybody else." And it seems so strange and so evil and so perverse that this was happening after all that had happened before.
That's fair. And of course, you slowly came to the realization, you woke up to it, and now you've done a film that people can see. It's Rolling in the Deep is the name of the movie?
Rolling in the Deep. It's going to be playing on PBS on February 17th. It's also on there's a syndicated program called African American Short Films. It bus. And it was so nice. It was all the way down in Anaheim, which is an hour drive from Burbank. And so he's such a mensch. And so many of my breaks have come from black filmmakers. So I feel very grateful. And it's been an education for me, and also an opportunity to meet some extremely creative people.
Now, can I ask, since student films, generally, they've got a small budget, they're making do with what they've got, what are some one or two funny anecdote stories that you've dealt with, or that you've seen other people deal with on the set, when you've been doing these short, lower budget type films?
Okay, I can think of that. I know Rolling in the Deep is not a student film, it's professional.
Right, but I'm saying you've been in so many other movies.
I do remember that morning of the filming, the guy in charge of the sound decided he got a better job somewhere else and didn't show up.
Ooh!
Marcellus spent the next 2 hours trying to get another sound guy in, because if all the people don't participate as a team, the whole thing can fall through. And so we had to wait around a while for that. And this happens a lot. People don't show up, or people come in late. And maybe it's a California thing. I don't know.
Well, let me ask also, I mean, it's none of my business, but one of the nice things is that you were a lawyer for so many years. You probably put aside enough that you can retire comfortably, and you can do movies where either you are not paid, I'm assuming, or underpaid.
Yeah, exactly. I've been underpaid for the past 3 years and not paid in many cases. I take acting lessons every week, and most of the people in my class are much younger, and they have to work. They get either odd jobs, or sometimes they work in the film industry on the other side of the camera in production or something like that. But I feel very fortunate. My wife and I retired here in Burbank about 4 years ago, and we're living on her wisely invested funds. She was a software engineer, and
wow! Between a lawyer and a software engineer, you guys, God, what do you have kids?
Oh, we have 4 kids.
Whoa!
4 kids, all married, and we have 6 grandchildren.
Mazel! Wow!
Thank you. And as of April, 4 of these grandchildren will all be 8 years old, because each of my sons, his wife gave birth to twins. I have 2 sons. One's a lawyer in New York City.
Okay.
Architect in Northampton, Massachusetts. I have 2 daughters. One's started a nonprofit to help immigrants in the United States, help them get settled as Americans. It's called Mary's List, MIRYSLIST.org. It's a really good organization. And my other daughter is a artist and advertising executive at a online firm.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's wonderful. And, you hopefully have enough to put in their college funds a little bit, but also to live comfortably while you pursue acting. Can I ask, I mean, are you hoping to really break through and get a TV gig, or are you fine doing what you're doing right now?
I think each year I try to move up a little bit. I'm not doing student movies anymore so much, unless somebody really asks me to do one, and I get calls like that a lot. I'm really trying to move into more professional gigs, feature films, professional short films, TV gigs. I'm appearing on one of the network TV shows this coming summer.
Ooh.
I'm not at liberty to tell you what it is, but it's one of those shows where you have panelists and the guests come on, and I'm one of the guests that comes on the show, and the panelists have to make some decisions about who I am, or if I am the person I'm saying I am.
Well, but you're not in a giant mask costume, because that was on the other night. Yeah. You're not singing behind a big Elmo mask or something. All right. Well, that's. Do you have an agent?
I have an agent.
How did you get your agent?
I got it through a referral. That's the only way to really get an agent. One of her clients referred referred me to her, and we had a little meeting. However, most of my work, I'm still
self-generating, even though it's not student films anymore, even though it's features and it's small so-called professional films and work.
Right, exactly. I'm still non-union. I'm eligible to join the Screen Actors Guild, but I haven't joined yet because when I became eligible, I didn't have any experience, but I've gained a lot of experience over the past 3 years. So soon I should be joining the union and getting better jobs.
Well, if you join SAG, will that preclude you then from being able to do student films or the non-paying work?
For the most part, it'll preclude me from working in non-union productions. However, there are some student films that are actually union productions that are, there's a little clause there for student films and low-budget films. So there's still an opening there. I really enjoy working in indie movies, but I hope everybody would like to be in a studio film too. You can see the difference in the production for sure.
Now, can I ask also, in terms of, you say you're still and have been going to acting lessons for quite a while, what are one or two of the best, most useful things you've learned taking acting lessons?
Okay, I think several things I've learned. Just let yourself alone. You forget about the camera. You say your lines. You don't indicate, but you don't move your hands. You don't move your eyes. You speak as if you're as you and I are speaking right now, and that's hard to learn because you have a script. You have to memorize it. And then how do you say it as if you were just saying it out of your heart? And it takes a while it took a while for me to be able to do that. Also, you need to realize that when you work in front of a camera, the camera takes up everything. It records your thoughts almost. So you have to be able to be as subtle as possible. Whereas on stage, you're in front of an audience, you have to be able to emote, I guess overact, but overacting is quite obvious in front of a camera.
And surprisingly easy to do because you figure you want to come across, and you just don't realize that the camera is focusing on your pores at some point.
Oh, exactly. And they say that good acting you don't even notice it's acting, but bad acting is so obvious. And I'm judging in one of the film festivals. So I see a lot of different movies. And I can tell when they're overacting right away. It's quite obvious.
Now, what's kind of funny is that if people go looking for you on the interwebs, especially for pictures and images of Samuel Whitehill, the actor, it's amazing. You play a lot of crazy people. Or it looks like you do. Every picture on there almost of you is not like a smiling regular. Even your regular headshot, you look a little, buckshot crazy. Is that sort of your... Are you hoping for roles like that?
Yeah, I play a lot of whack-a-ramos. If I get cast as a nice guy, it's sort of a relief. I used to play a white racist, a child molester, a guy who's not very pleasant to be around. And if you go to my IMDb page, just look up Samuel Whitehill on IMDb, you'll see I have 27 videos there you can look at. And I just had 2 new performance reels made yesterday, so I'll be loading those up pretty soon. And then all these pictures you're talking about, over 100 pictures of all kinds of characters.
Before we let you go, Samuel Whitehill, and by the way, it's been very, very fun and delightful and informative talking with you in both English and Hebrew. I want to thank you, first of all, of course, for being with us in the neighborhood. You always mention your IMDb page. Do you also have a website that people can go to?
I'm using that as my website right now, but I'm also on Twitter under Whitehill Actor.
Whitehill, so you inform everybody when you've got a new thing coming out, where people can see it, so they can keep track of you, and they can remember when Rolling in the Deep is going to be on PBS, and when you're doing your other things.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram under Samuel Whitehill, and on Twitter under Whitehill Actor, and on Facebook, near Samuel Robert Whitehill. And anytime something is coming out, I'll always put it on one of those, or all three of those social media outlets.
Do you feel pressured, or does your agent sort of pressure you to say, make sure you're on Twitter, make sure you're on Insta? Like you have to spend half your when you're not rehearsing or you're not taking lessons, half your time has to be on social media. Is that like a must?
It's important, but it's not as important as people say it is. If you don't have the talent or don't have the energy to pursue this, you can be on all the social media you want. But having a fan base does help, of course, and for people to know about you, especially in the industry. I think it might be overrated. Some people make their living trying to get actors to improve their social media standing. There are a lot of people out here in Los Angeles with their hands out to take advantage of mostly young actors who don't know what the ropes are.
That's the nice thing about you having some years in the ring, both in terms of life experience and 4 years as an actor, that you're like, I'm doing just fine. I have my accounts. I'm dealing with them. More importantly, I'm getting better as an actor. I'm improving. I'm practicing. And, of course, the best improvement you get is from constantly working, right? And you're doing that, too, which is wonderful.
Just let yourself alone, and don't try to make sense of the words you're speaking. Just speak them, because as you and I speak here, I'm not making sense of everything I'm saying to you, and it's just not the way normal human speech.
Yeah, I make no sense to myself most of the time either. That's for sure.
But you make sense to me, at least.
Oh, wow! It's the first time. Now, my last question for the delightful Samuel Whitehill is... maybe I'm throwing you for a loop here, but I assume you love movies. You've watched a zillion movies over your life, right?
Oh, yeah.
If they were to
every day.
remake a movie, one of your favorite movies or a movie you like, is there ever a moment when you've been watching a movie and go, I wish I could do that part? If they ever remake it and recast it, I want to be so-and-so, because I'd be so good.
Well, yesterday I watched a feature film for one of the festivals I'm a judge for, and that movie was so wacky, so crazy, and so funny. I said, I've got to get hold of the filmmaker and send him my reel, because if he does work like this, I really want to be a part of it.
Ooh, okay, well, give a plug. Who is it? What was the movie?
I cannot tell you, because as a judge I have to
sorry.
remain anonymous, yeah. But let me tell you that after the festival takes place, I'll let you know. I can contact you. But it's a delightful, crazy, wacky movie. It's right up there with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, with What's New Pussycat, with some of the really great films I remember from my younger days.
But that's what I'm even asking about. Like, can you point to a movie that you've seen over the years where you're like, I wish I had that part? You know, played by Jimmy Stewart or by Jack Nicholson or something like that.
Yeah, well, every time I see a movie, I look at one of the characters. I could do that. I watched 12 Years a Slave before I worked on Rolling in the Deep, and I said, wow, I could do any of those roles of bad white people in that movie. Because, it's called acting, you know. It's not your. We have the genes for everybody who's ever lived, and including the best and the worst. I'm really bad at that, telling you which movie a particular movie I could play in. Every time I see a film, I see somebody in there I could do the job that he did or she did.
Well, here's what I wish for you, Samuel Whitehill. I hope you end up doing a movie that becomes so iconic with your character that 30, 40, 50 years from now, some young actor looks and goes, ooh, I could do that part better than Samuel Whitehill did. And he got so famous and he made so much money and became so beloved. I can do that. That's what I hope for you.
Well, thank you. That's a really nice wish. And if it doesn't happen, I'm having a great time now, because when I do go, I'll be at the top of my career.
Well, it has been just fun and delightful talking to Samuel Whitehill here in the neighborhood. I wish you a good Shabbos, most of all, and health and continued good work and success. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Rabbi, and a good Shabbat Shalom to you.
Shabbat Shalom.